The episode starts with a party scene where we see our main lead, Soo-Bin, who is very handsome. As he enters the party, everyone stares at him. Then our female lead, Yoo-Joo, comes in, and Soo-Bin tells her that she doesn't need to be nervous because everyone is looking at him, not her. The scene then shifts to a day before, where we see Yoo-Joo using sign language to tell a reporter her story. She can't speak because she's mute. They then learn about a press conference where Soo-Bin is the spokesperson for the government. Here, Soo-Bin tells the media about how some people kidnapped their people and are demanding ransom. The government decided not to give in to the kidnappers and will bring their people home safely. We then see Yuri, the reporter, who is blushing at Soo-Bin's speech because she likes him. On the other hand, Yoo-Joo gives Soo-Bin the middle finger after listening to his speech. The next scene shows Yoo-Joo with her brother, Bon, and their mother. Yoo-Joo is troubled by their conversations. While driving, her car suddenly becomes unbalanced, and Yoo-Joo doesn't know what's happening. She tries to open the car door but can't. Then she sees a person and gets scared. Suddenly the car door opens. In the next scene, Bon receives a call from someone who tells him that he has kidnapped his wife and will soon kill her. Bon doesn't believe the kidnapper, and then he calls his mother-in-law to ask about Yoo-Joo. His mother-in-law tells him they dropped Yoo-Joo home earlier. When the kidnapper calls again, Bon tells him to call him only when he has Yoo-Joo's dead body. He tells the kidnapper to do whatever he wants with her. Yoo-Joo feels very bad after hearing all of this. On the other hand, Bon seems indifferent but asks his assistant to track the number and drives fast to reach home. Yoo-Joo got hurt because of the glass. She quickly bandages her wound. When Bon comes home and sees her, she goes back to her work. Bon tries to talk to her but Yoo-Joo doesn't respond. Bon feels relieved to see her safe. Then his guy calls him and tells him they can't track the number. It can only be tracked if Bon talks to the person for 10 minutes. Yoo-Joo is listening to all this. Bon goes to his study room and asks to hire bodyguards for Yoo-Joo. Then he goes to Yoo-Joo and asks her to come to the party with him tomorrow. It's an ambassador's birthday whose wife is deaf. Yoo-Joo will use sign language to communicate with her. The story then goes back 3 years, where we see Yoo-Joo in her wedding dress. Bon comes and asks her to remove all the jewelry and the dress. Yoo-Joo starts taking off her dress, and Bon covers her with his blazer, saying she will be naked. Then he shows her the contract paper and tells her that she can't tell anyone about their marriage. There is no love or emotion in their marriage. She will just be his hostess. Later they get married. The story now comes back to the present. Yoo-Joo is watching the news and everyone is discussing who Bon's wife is. We then see the scene from the beginning of the episode where the two are at the party. The ambassador's wife can't hear anything, and Yoo-Joo uses sign language to explain everything to her. Both are impressed and say they didn't know Bon's wife knew sign language. Yoo-Joo tells them she's not his wife, it's her job. People then start asking Bon about his wife. Bon says he can't tell anyone about his wife. She's a government employee, because of which people keep attacking her. His wife is his weakness. Yoo-Joo is listening to all this. When the two are alone, Yoo-Joo asks him through a message if she can go home now. After his work is done, Bon refuses. Yoo-Joo tells him through sign language, "Do you think I can't hear? Do you think I have no emotions? You said I'm your weakness. Then where were you yesterday? That killer was about to kill me but you didn't come." After saying all this, she leaves. Later, the kidnapper calls Bon again. Bon tells him he said he would kill his wife, but she's safe. The kidnapper says he can still kill her today. Hearing this, Bon gets completely shocked and says he can't come to the party. The kidnapper starts talking about the food he has at his place. Bon, filled with fear, starts looking for Yoo-Joo. He tries to find the kidnapper, but he can't find him anywhere. Bon asks how he knows about his wife. The kidnapper says he knows everything about her. He says Bon's wife is Yoo-Joo, who can't speak and is the daughter of the chairman. He says Bon was supposed to marry the chairman's elder daughter, but she ran away a day before the wedding. After that, Bon married Yoo-Joo. If this information gets out, what will happen to him? We then learn that Yoo-Joo is the one talking on the kidnapper's phone. She's using a voice changer. Last night, when Bon said to call him only when he has Yoo-Joo's dead body, she was completely broken and started driving. That's when they had an accident. Yoo-Joo wasn't hurt, but the kidnapper was unconscious. Yoo-Joo took his phone and is now talking to him using it. Yoo-Joo says to Bon, "Do you know how scared your wife was? She can't even speak, and still, you didn't come to help her." After hearing this, Bon asks her what she wants. Yoo-Joo, pretending to be kidnapper, said Bon that he must give divorce to Yoo-Joo and marry her elder sister Yuri, who was his real fiancée. Bon gets very angry after hearing this and tells the kidnapper how dare he come to his family. He says he won't spare him and will catch him soon. Hearing this, Yoo-Joo, scared, hangs up the call. As soon as Yoo-Joo steps out of the washroom, Bon takes her to another room. He asks her if she had an accident yesterday, if anyone kidnapped her, and where she got hurt. He then looks at her neck and asks who kidnapped her, if she saw their face, and if she knows them. Yoo-Joo tells him through a message that their face was hidden and she couldn't see them. Bon gets angry and says, how could she not tell him about all this? Yoo-Joo thinks to herself, you wanted to see my dead body, didn't you? Bon steps outside, and his friend calls him, telling him they couldn't track him again. Maybe some organization is behind it. Hearing this, Bon gets even more worried. Meanwhile, Yoo-Joo is listening to her own recording and is very happy because she knows Bon's weakness. She needs to do something about the kidnapper's phone soon. We then see Bon coming to Yoo-Joo and asking for her car keys. Yoo-Joo, scared, gives him the keys. Bon goes to search for the car. On the other hand, Yoo-Joo is very scared because she thinks her conversation with the kidnapper is recorded on the car camera. She goes to Bon, scared, and he asks her where the recording is gone. Just then, a bike was about to hit Yoo-Joo, and Bon pulls her towards him. Yoo-Joo starts looking at him as he protects her. Bon tells her not to go to work, but Yoo-Joo refuses and tells him clearly that she won't leave her job. Bon doesn't like this at all. The next scene shows a court scene where a lady's case is going on. She can't speak, so Yoo-Joo helps her using sign language. Bon and his friend try to find the criminal, but they don't find any clues. Then, Bon gets a message that Yoo-Joo is free from her work. Bon tells her to go home quickly. Miss Lee, Yoo-Joo's bodyguard, is waiting for her. But then, she sees some people fighting and goes towards them. On the other hand, we see a suspicious person in her room. She sees the shadow of that person and gets very scared. She remembers the scene from that night. Yoo-Joo thinks it might be the kidnapper. When Miss Lee comes back, she doesn't find Yoo-Joo anywhere. She gets scared and starts searching for Yoo-Joo. She also tells Bon about this through a message. Bon asks her to find Yoo-Joo quickly. After a while, Miss Lee messages him that they found Yoo-Joo. She is with someone. In the past, we see that as soon as Yoo-Joo steps out of the showroom, she meets her colleague. She is now with her colleague. Photos of both of them reach Bon. Bon notices how happy Yoo-Joo is with this guy. It's clear she likes him. We then see the colleague talking to Yoo-Joo in sign language. He tells her that he will be working with her from now on. Then he asks for her contact number. After giving him the number, Yoo-Joo leaves. At home, Yoo-Joo's mother has come. She has brought a dress for Yoo-Joo from a store. Yoo-Joo gets very upset and says, "Are you really my mother? How can you do this to me?" Her mother says after her sister ran away, Yoo-Joo herself agreed to marry Bon. And because of Raven, her father is getting treatment in a good hospital. She has to do all this. Yoo-Joo has to do everything a wife should do. Yoo-Joo's father is her weakness. After that, she gets ready wearing that dress and looks at the kidnapper's phone, saying, "What will your reaction be when I run away from here?" She calls Bon pretending to be the kidnapper. Bon picks up the call and Yoo-Joo says, "Tell me, what did you think?" Bon starts asking her how she knows so much about him. He asks if she is someone close to him. "'Cause nobody knows about my wife. How do you know about Yoo-Joo?" When Yoo-Joo doesn't answer, Bon refuses to believe anything she says. Yoo-Joo tells him that she's sending him a photo, and he should see it. Maybe then he will be ready to compromise. Bon looks at the photo and asks what this is. Yoo-Joo says, "Oh, you don't know that your wife has a heart on her thigh? This is a photo of your wife's thigh." Bon zooms in on the photo and starts looking at it. Then Yoo-Joo says, "Have you not seen your wife yet? You're married, aren't you? Or are you not worthy enough to see your wife's thighs?" Bon angrily tells her to stop talking nonsense. He says she wants to get her work done using fake photos. He won't let that happen. Yoo-Joo, frustrated, tells him that if he thinks it's a fake photo, he can check his wife's thigh himself. She hangs up the call and thinks about what she just said to him. Her reaction will be worth seeing. Later, when Bon comes home, he is very scared. Yoo-Joo hides under the blanket and holds it tightly. Bon comes to her and pulls the blanket. Yoo-Joo doesn't let go. Bon removes the blanket and she falls on him. They both start looking at each other. Yoo-Joo gets scared by this lovey-dovey scene. Bon moves to the side and tells her that if she wants to work, she can come to his office from tomorrow. Yoo-Joo is completely shocked. After this lovey-dovey scene, she can't sleep the whole night. When she wakes up in the morning, she sees Bon in front of her and is very shocked because he is always at his office at this time. Bon asks her to have breakfast. Yoo-Joo thinks to herself, does he want me to make breakfast for him? Then he starts making breakfast for her. He says he will hire new bodyguards for her. Yoo-Joo says there's no need for that. She was with her friend. Bon says, is your friend trustworthy? Are you close to him? Yoo-Joo starts typing, but Bon doesn't look at her and leaves after giving her breakfast. Yoo-Joo finds all this very strange. Today, Yoo-Joo goes to meet her father, who is in a medical hospital. She tells him, crying, how she is troubled. She has forgotten herself. She has to live as a mute. She gets very emotional. On the other hand, we see Bon, whom Yoo-Joo calls again, but he cuts the call. He knows that the kidnapper will call him at 10 o'clock. As soon as Bon cuts the call, Yoo-Joo calls him again. Bon picks up the call and asks her to wait for 5 minutes. 5 minutes later, Yoo-Joo calls him again. As soon as he picks up, Yoo-Joo starts imagining him in front of her. Bon says, look, you waited for me. If you keep waiting for me like this, I will definitely throw a bone in front of you. Yoo-Joo grabs his collar and says, why are you doing this to me? Suddenly, there is an explosion sound and Yoo-Joo covers her ears. After a while, she calls Bon again, but his call doesn't connect. She comes home and starts searching for Bon, but he isn't home. She falls asleep on the sofa while waiting for him. The next morning, she learns from the news that there was an explosion in their building last night. Many people are injured. She drops the glass of water from her hand. Then, someone knocks on the door. She gets very scared because she thinks it's the kidnapper, but it's Bon who has come. Bon is not well. He is severely injured. He comes to Yoo-Joo and sits her on a table. He starts getting close to her. Yoo-Joo gets very scared. Bon says, I have to check today whether what the kidnapper said was true or not. Yoo-Joo holds her dress. We see that a delivery man brings a pizza to Bon's office. As soon as they open the box, there's a blast. Bon's eyes open, shut down the hospital. His colleague tells him that the kidnapper recorded a video for him, threatening him. Seeing this, Bon asks him to inform the police. We see Bon coming to Yoo-Joo and wanting to check her thigh, but Yoo-Joo is very scared. She knows what he wants to check. Just then, Bon's colleague calls him and he leaves to go outside. Then, he comes back to Yoo-Joo and asks for her phone. Yoo-Joo gives him the phone. After that, she deletes the photo of her thigh from the kidnapper's phone. On the other hand, Bon is checking her phone. But then, he finds out that Yoo-Joo is going to have lunch with her college friend today. He gets very jealous and finds out the restaurant they are going to. The scene ends here. After that, we see Yoo-Joo and her friend having lunch. Then, Yuri enters and is very surprised to see both of them together. She asks what they are doing here. Do they know each other? Then our Savin enters and Yoo-Joo tries to hide her face. But then, Savin comes to her and calls her by her name. On the other side, we see Bon's colleague. He sees a dustbin on fire outside and finds it strange. He then starts chasing a suspicious person. After chasing him for a while, he catches the person. Meanwhile, the four of them are sitting and having lunch. But everyone is very confused. Yoo-Joo's friend asks her in sign language, if you don't feel good here, we can go somewhere else. Seeing this, Savin asks, do you know sign language too? The person's anger increases even more. He starts asking about Yoo-Joo's work. Yoo-Joo's friend feels bad about it and says he's a doctor for the crazy ones. After seeing their bickering, Yoo-Joo understands that a big fight is about to start here. So, she gets drunk and takes her friend away from there. Then, Bon's colleague calls him and tells him about the incident. Bon says that this guy can't be the one. He knows too much about me. Then, Yoo-Joo comes to him, takes his phone and asks, tell me, why are you following me? Do you think something is going on between me and my friend? I'll tell you, nothing like that is happening. Savin says, it seems like you know your friend very well, but you don't know me. Tell me, do you know me well? We've known each other for years. I know you very well, but do you know me? After saying this, he leaves. Yoo-Joo is lost in her thoughts. She's just thinking about how she can get a divorce from this man. On the other hand, Savin wants to catch the person who followed him. Then we see Yoo-Joo going to take her car. The car was broken, so she had left it at a shop for repair. As soon as she goes there, her car gets hacked. The radio turns on and random songs start playing. Yoo-Joo gets scared and runs home. She quickly turns on the kidnapper's phone but finds nothing. Then, Savin comes to her. She tells him that she is going out to buy some beer. Savin says, stay at home, I'll bring it. Hearing this, Yoo-Joo gets very shocked. As soon as Savin goes outside, Yoo-Joo calls him again pretending to be the kidnapper. She asks him, what did you think? Will you do what I said? Savin says, "What's your benefit if I leave Yoo-Joo?" Yoo-Joo doesn't know what to say. Savin says, "I will never leave Yoo-Joo." Hearing this, Yoo-Joo says, "Why can't you leave her? You don't even love her. Your marriage is just a namesake." Savin shouts at her and says that he will catch her soon. He will never leave Yoo-Joo. Then, he cuts the call. Yoo-Joo gets worried. Savin comes home with a beer. Yoo-Joo talks to him about divorce. Savin says he's not going to divorce her. Then he goes to sleep in Yoo-Joo's room. Yoo-Joo doesn't understand anything. After seeing Yoo-Joo's face, Savin says, "What are you looking at? You can also come and sleep here. I won't eat you. Anyway, I'm not going to touch you, but if you want to, you can. I don't have any problem with it." Yoo-Joo gets worried and lies down on the bed beside him. Savin starts thinking that the kidnapper knows everything about him. Even his home is not safe. He needs to protect Yoo-Joo. Yoo-Joo, looking at Savin, is thinking about how he said that he'd only call when he had her dead body. Yoo-Joo falls asleep, and we see Savin get up and leave. The scene cuts here. The next morning, we learn that Yoo-Joo's father has been kidnapped by the kidnapper. He calls Yoo-Joo on her father's phone through a video call. She gets very worried. For the first time, we see the kidnapper's face, which is quite strange, and his eyes don't match. Yoo-Joo gets worried seeing him. She asks him who he is and why he is doing this to her. The kidnapper laughs and says, "You have my phone, don't you? You are doing a good job, but, tell me, why are you doing all this?" Yoo-Joo says that she just wants a divorce from Savin. The kidnapper laughs and says, "Okay, we both have the same goal." On the other side, Savin receives a call which we haven't seen yet. Yoo-Joo rushes to the hospital, where she finds her father safe and feels relieved. Then, the police officers ask her to come with them to file a report. Yoo-Joo sits in the car, but then the car's radio turns on by itself. Yoo-Joo understands that the kidnapper has hacked it. She gets very worried and puts her hand on her face. Seeing her state, the police officers stop the car. Yoo-Joo gets out and gets very worried. She is thinking about how she has always been alone. Then, Savin enters, and the police officers are very shocked to see the president's car here. After saluting him, the officers ask him if he knows this lady. Savin comes to Yoo-Joo and says, "Yes, she is my family, she is my wife." This is the first time Savin has publicly called Yoo-Joo his wife. Yoo-Joo is very surprised and starts looking at Savin. Savin is with the president. But then he learns that Yoo-Joo has been taken away by the police officers. He immediately goes to her. Then the president asks him to take his car, and he goes directly to Yoo-Joo. He tells the police officers that this is his family, his wife. He asks the officers not to tell anyone about this. Yoo-Joo is completely shocked looking at him. Savin then tells her that if she wants to cry, she can cry. He will shift her father to a nursing home. Yoo-Joo starts crying loudly. Savin looks at her and says, "Cry, but you look very ugly." He starts smiling. Yoo-Joo cries even louder. The scene ends here. The next scene shows them in a hotel room. Yoo-Joo goes to the washroom first. When she comes out, Savin comes to her and says, "We need to talk. As you have understood, someone is keeping an eye on us. Someone is doing all this to us. First, your car, then my phone, and now your father. You have to stay with me. I will fix everything." Yoo-Joo starts leaving, and Savin asks her to sit down. Then he brings dinner for her. Savin's father has fixed a meeting inside the same hotel. Savin goes to meet him. Here, we learn that this father-son duo doesn't get along at all. After a while, Yoo-Joo also arrives. Savin's father looks at her angrily and says, "I think you and your father both have done this intentionally. Someone is clicking their photos." Seeing this, Savin understands that it's his father's trap. He takes Yoo-Joo and starts leaving. His father gets very angry and throws a glass at Yoo-Joo. Savin saves her. Then, Savin refuses to accompany him. He holds Yoo-Joo's hand and takes her with him. Yoo-Joo tries to get her hand out of his in the lift, but Savin tells her he won't divorce her. Yoo-Joo doesn't understand anything. As soon as she comes home, she gets very worried because she keeps remembering the criminal's words. "Call Savin again." She takes that phone and is about to throw it away, but then Savin comes in front of her. Seeing the trash, Savin says, "Okay, I'll throw it away." Seeing him, Yoo-Joo takes the trash back to her room. But then, she gets a call from her friend, and she starts talking to him. Yoo-Joo tells Savin that she will go for an interview in his company. If she gets the job, she can do whatever she wants. Then we see Savin looking at the details of Yoo-Joo's friend. He's gathering information about him. It's now 10 p.m., and the kidnapper calls Savin again. Yoo-Joo tells him, "You asked me what I would get in return if Yoo-Joo leaves, right? You will get In-ha. You and your family both want In-ha back, don't you?" Yoo-Joo leaves and you get In-ha back. Savin smiles and says, I want to tell you something. When In-ha disappeared, she met me last. I made a deal with her. Then he comes inside. Yoo-Joo quickly hides the phone. Savin asks her to come with him to tomorrow's event. The first event is Savin's father's party where everyone is present. Then, we see Yoo-Joo come to the party, dressed very well. But then, her mother comes to her and asks where her father is. Does she know anything about it? Yoo-Joo says that her husband shifted him to a nursing home. Hearing this, her mother gets very upset because she didn't want Savin to ever know about Yoo-Joo's father. Yoo-Joo feels alone at the party. Savin is also busy, so she goes to the rooftop and calls Savin again pretending to be the kidnapper. She starts crying and telling him her story. She says she has been alone since childhood and is very troubled. She doesn't have skills like In-ha. She's completely useless. Savin says, you shouldn't talk about my wife like this. She's very talented. She's doing all this because she loves her mother very much. Yoo-Joo cries again and asks, have you ever told your wife that you two are a couple? You treat her like she's not even in this world. Savin finds Yoo-Joo on the rooftop. He sees her talking on the phone. Both of them are very shocked seeing each other. Then, we see a flashback. Savin goes to the police officers, and they tell him that maybe his wife had a panic attack. She was shouting very loudly. Savin starts watching the video where Yoo-Joo is asking herself to get out of the car. He understands that Yoo-Joo can speak. Savin approaching Yoo-Joo's mother and asking her why Yoo-Joo is deaf. Her stepmother tells him that because of Yoo-Joo, her brother and sister died. Do you think she should be normal? Savin feels that Yoo-Joo can speak when she is very scared or panics. He then takes Yoo-Joo's jacket and starts looking for her. He is shocked to see Yoo-Joo talking to someone on the phone. Yoo-Joo is very scared after seeing him. She's about to fall, but Savin saves her. Savin angrily asks her why she didn't tell him. What was she hiding from him? Yoo-Joo gets scared and can't say anything. Savin gives her the jacket and asks her to go inside. Doo-jae calls Savin and tells him that the kidnapper is still at the party. Savin starts suspecting Yoo-Joo, but Doo-jae says maybe it's a man. Knowing that the person is still in the hotel, Savin starts looking for Yoo-Joo. When he finally finds her, he looks at her legs, where there is a scratch. Savin asks her if a dog bit her. Then Yoo-Joo remembers how a dog actually bit her in her childhood. Savin goes to her and protects her from the dog. He then carries her bag and takes her home. Yoo-Joo can't sleep all night. She keeps thinking about it. Our hero is also in the same state. He goes to her and asks her what she is hiding. Yoo-Joo starts typing on her phone, saying everyone has secrets. You have secrets too. You haven't told me yet either. Seeing this, Savin gets very angry and goes to sleep in his room. All these things trouble him a lot. The next morning he is at the office but not paying attention to the meeting. His colleagues notice this. Yoo-Joo has finally gotten her job and is very happy. She tries to message Savin but she can't. By mistake, she sends him an emoji. Seeing this, Savin is very confused. He doesn't understand what the emoji means, and everyone is looking at him. As soon as he goes outside, he blushes seeing the emoji. He tries to reply but he can't find anything good. So, he asks her to have dinner with him at night. On the other hand, we see Yuri working on a missing child case. We see how the same masked person scared the child the previous night. This person's actions are very suspicious. Hong In tells Sang-woo that Savion was asking her about him. And she accidentally told Savin that Sang-woo is orphan. Hearing this, Sang-woo is very shocked. The next scene shows Yoo-Joo going shopping. Savin is choosing a dress for her. On the other hand, we see In-ha trying on a blue dress. Savin also sees the same dress and asks Yoo-Joo to try it. But Yoo-Joo doesn't like the dress. Savin doesn't understand what to do now. Then he sees a dress in a shop, which is very beautiful. He asks Yoo-Joo to try on the fur dress. Just then, Doo-jae calls Savin and tells him that from the audio recording, they found out that the killer is not a man, but a woman. Savin is shocked, and at the same time Yoo-Joo comes out ready. She looks so beautiful that Savin just keeps looking at her. Now they decide to have dinner. Savin says, the things here are a bit too expensive. At the same time, Yuri and her colleague are messaging each other in their group about having dinner together. Seeing this, Savin starts looking at his phone. The next scene shows them all having dinner together. This person directly asks Savin why he was asking for his details. Savin also says, tell me, what are you doing with Yuri? Their argument starts getting heated. Seeing this, Yoo-Joo says, won't you congratulate me? Look, I got a job. The person replies, but this wasn't your dream, was it? Now we see a scene from their college days. Yoo-Joo goes to the music room and starts listening to music. The person is watching her. He tells Sae-Bin that Yoo-Joo's dream was to become a newscaster, not to work in your office. Hearing this, Yuri says, "You seem to know Yoo-Joo very well. Were you two together in college?" Sae-Bin was about to say something angrily, but Yoo-Joo gets up and leaves. The person was about to go after her, but Sae-Bin gets up and leaves. Just then, Yoo-Joo receives a message from her sister In-ha. Sae-Bin comes outside, but he doesn't find Yoo-Joo anywhere. Then he remembers a scene from his childhood where Yoo-Joo, In-ha and Sae-Bin were present. Yoo-Joo calls Sae-Bin again, pretending to be the kidnapper. She asks, "So what did you decide?" Sae-Bin asks her, "Tell me, have you ever heard Yoo-Joo's voice?" Yoo-Joo cries and says, "No, Yoo-Joo can't speak." Hearing this, Sae-Bin says, "Do you know the reason why she can't speak? She had a car accident where she lost her brother and sister." Then he understands that all this is happening because of In-ha. Yoo-Joo says, "So what did you think? If you let Yoo-Joo go, In-ha will come back, won't she? You don't want that, do you?" Sae-Bin says, "Yes, that's what I want. Today I'm going to tell you how I feel about Yoo-Joo." While saying all this, he crosses the road without looking. But then a truck is about to hit him. Yoo-Joo screams and pushes him back. Both of them fall on the ground. Sae-Bin looks at Yoo-Joo with shock. He's bandaging her wounds and tells her, "How can you do this? You should think about yourself." "But wait a minute. I think I just heard your voice. Can you speak?" Yoo-Joo, using sign language, says, "How can she speak?" Sae-Bin says, "If you want to speak, you should try." Meanwhile, In-ha sees Yoo-Joo and Sae-Bin together and gets very jealous. When Yoo-Joo comes to her room, she blushes looking at the dress. But then, she receives a call from the kidnapper who asks her, "How are you, my sister?" The scene cuts here. The next morning we see Sae-Bin in his office, telling everyone that he is going to learn sign language from today. Everyone is very happy. Then his training starts, where Yoo-Joo is teaching him how to speak in sign language. They both look very cute while talking in sign language. Both smile looking at each other. After office hours, they go to have dinner. Sae-Bin cuts the meat for everyone. Everyone is very impressed by his style and starts making videos of him. When he tastes the food, he likes it a lot. Yoo-Joo also smiles seeing this. Then, Doo-jae comes and plays a recording for Sae-Bin. It's Yoo-Joo's recording. Now we see that when Yoo-Joo was talking to the kidnapper, she understood that the accident was done by the same kidnapper. When Yoo-Joo asks her to stop doing all this, the person says, "Do you think you know everything about Sae-Bin? I'm the only one who knows him well in this world." After hanging up, Yoo-Joo is thinking about Sae-Bin. On the other hand, Sae-Bin listens to the recording and looks at Yoo-Joo. Doo-jae says, "Whoever this person is, they are very close to you." Sae-Bin remembers all the flashback scenes and drinks a lot. Yoo-Joo catches him and takes him home, but Yoo-Joo can't pick him up and accidentally drops him. Sae-Bin's phone falls down. Doo-jae has messaged him, saying that the audio file you asked me to check, both of them are 99% similar. Sae-Bin doesn't fall alone. Yoo-Joo falls on top of him, and they accidentally kiss. As soon as Sae-Bin opens his eyes and sees Yoo-Joo, the episode ends with this suspense.